It's your boy Charles McBee. Do me a favor, hit that like button, share, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Charles McBee. Now, oh God! This past Sunday, the shit hit the fan all over Twitter. I'm talking about Terry Crews versus DL Hughley. Now, this beef has been simmering for quite some time, and it all has to do with Terry Crews being sexually assaulted and DL's reaction to it, along with the idea of toxic masculinity. Now, we all at the very least have heard of Terry Crews' case. And if you haven't, then do your research. This ain't no damn Netflix documentary. Now, Terry was signed to VME, which is a huge Hollywood agency. And while at a party, Adam Bennett, who was head of the motion picture department, came up to him and grabbed him by the nuts twice in front of his wife. Now, I must make a full confession. When I first heard about this story, I had the same reaction as every other Negro in every barbershop across America. How in the hell did Terry Crews, with his big muscular ass, get sexually assaulted by this greasy ass agent? Now, I heard all the jokes and I even told a few myself. Mind you, none of us, especially me, could ever F with Terry in any physical challenge of any kind on my best day and on his worst. There's always a fool that can't do a sit-up that'll be yelling at LeBron running up and down the court, which is what had us all so confused. Now, I want to break this down into 3 parts. The first part is the toxic black male perspective. We got to talk about it. Now, it's no secret that the black culture is riddled with toxic masculinity. Anyone who denies that is either deaf, blind, or simply in denial. We celebrate it in our culture, in our music, in our movies, how we react with each other, the whole nine. As black men, we're not allowed to show any affection. Hell, we're not even allowed to give each other a compliment without saying pause. I've seen grown-ass men in their 50s saying pause after telling somebody that they like their hat. And I can hear some of y'all now saying, well, white people have toxic masculinity in their culture too. Of course they do, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. And if I'm being honest, we take our music and our film literally. Hell, most of us grew up studying Tupac lyrics like we was quoting the Quran. I've heard men admit to needing to listen to hip hop so that they can get hyped up before doing a drive-by or committing a crime. Now, am I saying that rap shouldn't exist or that we should silence rappers? Absolutely not. I'm still for freedom of speech. I'm just painting the picture. I mean, you talk to any nigga today and they act like they couldn't have been a slave back in the day. Master try and beat me, I'll whip him with his own whip. And you ever notice that niggas are always wishing a nigga would? I wish a nigga would run up on me. I wish my agent would try and grab my nuts. Why would you wish that? Why? I'm not about reaction, I'm about prevention. I wish a nigga wouldn't. I wish a nigga wouldn't several times a day. Every time I walk out of my apartment, I say to myself, I wish a nigga wouldn't rob me today. So of course you have men who hear Terry Crews' story and they clown him at even the thought of something like this happening. Now, for the purpose of this whole argument, I'm disregarding these men. These men are their own separate category. There's no real reasoning with them. Most of what they saying is all cap anyway. Now, the second category are the men who heard the story, and though they don't consider themselves to be the toughest guy on the planet or a thug by any nature, yet they still reject the thought of ever getting their balls grabbed twice, let alone some white dude at a party. And definitely not in front of his wife. And yes, I have to bring race into this, and I'll get into that soon. For some men, especially black, it's not about shooting up the club or constantly displaying your toxic male energy. For a good majority of men, it's about demanding a level of respect. You don't have to love me, you ain't gotta like me, you ain't gotta fear me, but you have to show me at the very least a basic level of decency as a human being and as a man. Now, why do I specify as a man? Because for years and years since slavery, and this is the part where all the white people go, why do you have to bring slavery into this, bro? Yep, I'm bringing up slavery. Ever since slavery, there has been a deep-rooted history of black men and women, but I'm talking about men right now, not being treated as human, let alone as men. Black men's wives were raped in front of them, their mothers, their daughters, abused and raped right in front of them just to emasculate them. Black men castrated and killed just to send a message to other men on how to behave. And it ain't just stopped with slavery. All through post-Civil War and Jim Crow, black men were constantly reminded where their places were in society. Constantly being emasculated by white men with power, whether it was the police, politicians, or their bosses. We've carried this PTSD through generations and generations, so we as black men become very triggered at the sign of anyone, particularly white men, attempting to emasculate us, especially in front of our women. And for a black man, there is absolutely nothing worse than being embarrassed or emasculated in front of a woman, especially his woman, and especially his black woman. So when I hear a man look at Terry Crews' situation and say, it couldn't be me, I don't really see that as displaying toxic masculinity. He's just saying that, hey, it couldn't be me. At least not today, after all we've gone through. I work in show business. I don't just make YouTube videos that get an average of 6 views. I actually work in the biz. And I've had these conversations with black friends of mine. And some of them have said things to me in regards to what they would do or wouldn't do in Terry's case. And they've said to me, hey man, what can you do? These people have too much power. If you say something, they'll ruin your career. And I get that. And what I'm about to say is not in any way meant to be taken as sarcasm whatsoever, all right? But I will move my black ass back to Ohio. This shit don't mean that much to me. What profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his dignity and self-respect? Now, I'm not talking about Terry right now. I'm not talking about Terry Crews in this particular situation. I'm talking about the conversations with my peers. I've had friends of mine tell me about how afraid they are that a woman could falsely accuse them of sexual assault and how they won't know how to respond or what to do. And I tell them all the time, you fight and proclaim your innocence. And you sue whoever is falsely accusing you. Shout out to Chris Brown. I've been saying this for a long time, and I always hear the same response, but what about your career? Fuck the career. This shit don't mean that much to me. Again, I will move my black ass back to Ohio before I either allow someone to sexually assault me or falsely accuse me of sexual assault. And it would have to be falsely because I would never sexually assault anyone, just to be abundantly clear. Now, 50 Cent was asked once why people keep jumping on stage with Jay-Z. I don't know if y'all remember this, but like back in the day, Lil Mama jumped on stage with Jay-Z at a MTV VMAs. Freeway jumped on stage with Jay-Z. All these people kept jumping on stage with Jay-Z when they wasn't supposed to be up there, when they wasn't invited up there. And 50 responded by saying because Jay makes them feel comfortable enough that they can do that sort of thing. 50 said no one would ever feel that comfortable trying that shit with him because he doesn't give off that kind of energy. Now, granted, 50 may be the wrong person to use in this example because many will say that he falls into the first category of men that I was talking about. I mean, I think he might have actually changed his government name to be Toxic Masculinity. But he makes a good point. I'm not victim blaming. I'm not blaming the victim at all. But some men make it clear that trying to grab their nuts ain't a good idea. And I don't think that those men are wrong for having that energy. Here's the third category. Terry Crews' point of view. After a while, I realized that like most stories that come across our timeline, not many people have really read all of the facts or heard Terry's full side. Terry goes into much detail as to what happened that night and the following days. He says that when it happened, he was filled with such shock and rage that he wanted to knock this dude's head clean off. Which is the response that I think most men wanted to hear from Terry, but because nobody likes to actually look into the story, they never get this information. It's not always about beating somebody over the head with a baseball bat. Sometimes it's just about checking somebody right then and there. It's about nipping the situation in the bud before they think they can just nip you in the butt. Terry says that it was his wife who calmed him down and convinced him to keep a cool head. Now, I said before, there's nothing worse for a black man than being embarrassed or emasculated in front of his woman, especially a black woman. And if we're being honest, there are many women who would have looked their man in the face and said, you just gonna let that man do that to you? Granted, there are also other women who would have said, hey, you can let that man do whatever he wants, as long as you don't mess up the money. But according to Terry, his wife handled the situation the best way possible. And when you hear Terry really break things down from his perspective, you start to understand why he made the decision that he did and how hard it must be for him to stay on his pivot. And also why he may be suffering now for a greater cause in the future.
Now, one of the other things is that I'm supposed to punch him out because that's the whole trope that we've been taught. I mean, here I am, 240-pound black man, played in the NFL, the whole thing. The trope is now I'm a big violent man. I'm supposed to just, and I had even black men coming at me like, hey man, you supposed to go knock his head off. But the thing is, and they're like, man, your career ain't even all that for you to be, you know, letting your balls get felt on and all this stuff and not do nothing. But this is the thing, my family is all that. My wife is all that. My kids are all that. And I had to look at
most
the
importantly,
big
you gotta
picture.
feel like you all that.
The big, right, and the most important thing, I know who I am. I know I'm a father. I know I'm a husband. I know who I am as a human being. I know how much I'm worth. Yeah, that's
what did your wife say in that moment? Like, cause she was with you. Like, did she say you just gonna let him grab your balls like that?
She was the one who trained me. She said, first of all, 3 years earlier. See, you gotta understand, y'all gotta look at the whole picture. A lot of times the whole picture hasn't been taught. I've knocked people out. There have been people who've been knocked out. And a lot of people have seen the wrong end of what I've done. And she pulled me to the side and said, you can't do that. You can't do that. Let me tell you, I'm gonna tell you the rules. I took this to the courts. I took this legally. You saw me walk out the police station, but you know who told the police station I was there? TMZ told. Literally, they have agents in TMZ people in the police station. I didn't tell nobody I was going to the police station. So the whole thing was the whole system is complicit because they wanted to embarrass me. The whole thing is to shame me, to make me feel like you can't talk. Because let me tell you, you say something, we're going to cut your head off. Yeah. But you know what I did? I went the other way. I leaned in. I said, I'm telling everybody. In fact, I'm gonna show you don't have no determination over that. I'm not gonna be shamed because I shouldn't be. You can't shame me because it's not mine. Your man messed up. This is the agent. This is the head of the motion picture department at my agency. Your job, I pay you 10% of what I've earned for you to protect me, period. Yeah. And you assault me. And I'm sitting here like, and then I tell everybody the next day, and y'all gonna gaslight me because this is what women get. Women get this all the time. Women get like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You just crazy. It's all. And I was like, you wasn't hurt. Look at you. I'm like, wait a minute. I still got to pay him. Yeah. I still got to pay him, Sway. Yeah. I still have to give him 10% out of my check. I got to pay the guy that assaulted me. To this day. To this day, you still Brooklyn Nine-Nine got picked up. I got to give him 10%.
And what did he get? A suspension?
Suspended for not even, he got suspended over Thanksgiving. You understand what I mean? They tried to act like it was a suspension. It was Thanksgiving, dog. He got a vacation. And then we took his title. I'm like, no. He ain't, what is it? He got all the clients, he got all the money, and I still got to. So I'm, in essence, they like, you ain't got no damages. I'm like, wait a minute. So if I got to pay you and you litigating against me, I'm paying for my own guy to litigate against me. I'm like, yo, and this is another thing I found out, which is crazy. The guy, and when you talk about the DA and the whole thing, listen, Adam Bennett is the event chairman of the LA Police Foundation. He's the event chairman for them. You think he didn't make no calls? You think he don't know no people? This is the $8 billion company. And y'all want to play around with me? I'm like, I know the game.
After hearing Terry out, I have to say that I'm riding with him, and I'm definitely glad that he's speaking out. And as long as he's able to look himself and his wife and his kids in the eye with pride and dignity, that's all that really matters. Let me know, am I tripping? Leave a comment. Tell me what would you have done in this situation? I didn't play the DL interview, but I'll leave a link right here in the bio. I don't really think that DL's response was that crazy. On Twitter, he might have said some slick-ish, but he didn't really say anything that was that crazy to me in the Vlad interview. And I know this is a longer video than normal, but I've only got like a dozen followers, so it really don't matter. I don't really care. I'm just putting out the type of content that I'd want to see. Now, if you sat through this entire video, then I know you don't mind hitting that like button, sharing this video, or maybe even subscribing. Follow me on Twitter or Instagram at Charles McBee. If I can get my followers up to like 14, yo, I will be killing it. Peace.